All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live cooking demonstration. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm the Wellness Program Administrator with Georgia State University's Employee Development and Wellness Services. By trade, I am a registered dietitian, so I have studied quite a bit of nutrition in my time, and I'm always excited to share that knowledge with other people, and that's exactly what we'll be doing today as we create this healthy meal. Before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping things. We are going to be recording this WebEx, so if you would like to view the session again later, share it with a colleague or anything like that, you'll be given an opportunity to view that recording. We upload the recordings of most of our events to our EDWS YouTube channel. You can check out these types of events, past cooking demonstrations, as well as an entire set of physical activity-based events, stress management and mental well-being events, all sorts of great things there. Additionally, throughout today's presentation, we're going to be making use of the comment and chat feature of WebEx. If you've got any ideas, questions, comments, anything like that, please feel free to put them in the comment section. At the end of today's presentation, we'll be sure to go through all of those and explore those together. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be making a tofu stir fry with broccoli, snow peas, and bell peppers. It's a pretty easy dish to throw together. It's got a great source of protein, so many different nutrients coming from all the colorful vegetables we have, and it's a very well-balanced meal. At the end of the presentation, we're also going to send out a copy of the recipe along with the nutrition information that goes with it so you can see how it might fit into your lifestyle. So as we're getting started here, just a couple of the key pieces of equipment you'll need. You will need a large skillet. Now I'm using a wok today. These are great. Not everyone has one of these. You can pick a big one up like this for about $40. If you do a lot of stir frying, they are such a great lifesaver, but you don't have to have one. If you've got a large skillet, it'll get you through this recipe just fine. So you'll need a stovetop and a large cooking skillet or wok. You're going to need a cutting board and a knife, and that's really it as far as equipment goes. Now, because we're working with tofu, there are a couple steps that you need to do to prepare the tofu. I've gone ahead and done them in advance, but I want to walk you through what I did. So tofu, if you're unfamiliar, is made from soybeans, and it's basically just a big kind of block of soybean-based protein. It doesn't have a lot of flavor by itself, but it soaks up any sauce and additional flavors that you might cook with it, so we can really sculpt it to be whatever we want it to be in terms of flavor. You do need to press it, though, and get the water out of it. It comes packed in a liquid. So what I've done here is I've set up a tofu press, and I'll share some instructions on how to do that in the recipe if you need to follow those steps as well. Essentially, what you do is you take the tofu, you cut it into 3 small pieces that are just flat, and then you put some towels and some weight on top of it. You do this for about 15 minutes or more. And that will drain the water out. It'll soak up into the towels, and then the tofu is primed and ready for cooking and absorbing flavor. So I just used some cans of beans to weigh it down. You can really use any heavy item or object that you might have. So let me get this out of the way, and you can continue to see what this looked like here. So I had just a dish towel. Underneath that, I had a couple layers of paper towels. I usually like to use paper towels to separate the tofu from the dish towels. And then here you can see the pieces of tofu that I cut. It comes with 1 large block, and I just cut it into 3 flat pieces like that so that I could apply the pressure to it evenly. So let me get these towels out of the way, and then we will continue working with the tofu. So now that we've got the tofu into these pieces that we've pressed, the liquid's mostly out of it, we're just going to cut it up into cubes. The size of the cube is entirely up to you. I usually like to imagine, what would be a pleasing bite size if I were to bite into this, and I kind of go off of that. So I just cut it into strips like that, and then what I'm going to do is turn the cutting board and basically just run the knife in the opposite direction now and finish making this into cubes. So nutritionally, tofu is an interesting food. If you are trying to do more plant-based meals, it is an excellent source of protein. It's pretty cheap and easy to work with. So if you are on a budget, often adding protein is the most expensive part of a meal. If you're doing things like beef or chicken, that money can start to add up fairly quickly. So that is one of the great benefits of tofu, is it's pretty affordable. So we've cut them into these little pieces. Again, if you're unfamiliar, you can see it's a pretty spongy thing. It's definitely got an interesting texture to it. You could eat it like this, but there's not really any flavor, so I wouldn't recommend that. So what we'll want to do is we're actually going to start cooking the tofu first. We're going to use a tablespoon of cooking oil. I'm actually using toasted sesame seed oil today. And I want to put the emphasis on the word toasted. There is regular sesame seed oil and there's toasted sesame seed oil. The toasted oil has a much stronger flavor profile, which works great for the tofu because we're going to soak up all that flavor. It's got a cooking temperature of up to 350 degrees. Beyond that, it will start to smoke, which is not ideal for cooking. So you want to make sure that you're not doing too high of a heat. I'm going to set this burner up and just get it on a nice medium heat. Okay. And we'll heat that oil up, and then we'll add the tofu to it until it gets to a nice, just medium brown. We're going to kind of coat all the edges, get it a little bit browned. We are going to add additional ingredients and let the tofu cook a little bit more later, but this is sort of our initial step. So like I said, great source of plant-based protein, really easy way to add additional protein to a meal. So let's go ahead and scoop this into there. And what I'm going to do is just kind of move the tofu around a little bit. I want it to be on a single layer. So the tofu should all be, each piece of tofu should be touching the bottom of part of the pan. That way we know it's in direct contact with that cooking surface and it'll get that heat applied to it. You can mix it around a little bit to make sure they're picking up some of that oil. And then we're just going to let it be for a little bit. This process will usually take about 5 minutes. It will brown that bottom side, then we'll come in, flip it over so we can brown those other edges as well. In the meantime, why don't we get started with some of our other ingredients? So in terms of vegetables, we've got 3 ones here. I mentioned we'll use broccoli, bell pepper, and snow peas. We can start off with the broccoli, and what you'll want is about 2 cups of broccoli. If you get a good sized head or of just the crowns like this, this will come into about 2 cups. A good rule of thumb, a little cheat sheet, is if you ball up your fist, 1 fist is about 1 cup. So I can see with my fist next to this, this is probably about 2 fists worth of broccoli, which is 2 cups. Perfect, exactly what we're looking for. If you've got larger hands, if you're a taller person or larger bone structure, your hand may be more like 1.5 cups. That's typically more common in men, especially men who are like over 6 feet tall. They may have larger hands, and you can measure it that way. But for a lot of people, 1 fist is 1 cup, so that's a nice, convenient way to remember it. So we'll go ahead and cut into this. I usually like to cut the base of it off so that the individual stalks can kind of fall apart a little bit easily. We're just going to chop this up into small pieces so it can cook evenly when we add it to the wok. There are a lot of different ways to go about chopping broccoli. I kind of just go into it. Some people are not a big fan of the kind of base or the stem here. It's very nutritious. There's a lot of fiber and great stuff in it. So I do encourage you to chop it up and make use of it. You will hear the tofu sizzle throughout the cooking process. That is totally normal. If there's any moisture left in it from when you were pressing, you're going to hear that sizzling as it'll steam a little bit and some of that moisture will release. That's a-okay and part of the process. Now, most of us know of broccoli as being a very, very healthy vegetable. You can tell from its dark green color that it's rich in vitamins and minerals that really, the dark green vegetables that you encounter tend to be that way. If you think of spinach, which has a very dark green color to it, that is due to the vitamin and mineral content. These are great in fiber, which is important for keeping us regular. It's good for keeping our cholesterol at a healthy level, and it can actually help with weight management by making us feel full and satisfied whenever we eat a meal. So let me show you something here real quick. In terms of chopping up the broccoli, this is an ideal size. We're trying to look for something, again, that's bite-sized. So as you chop through it, if you see bigger pieces like this, I usually will just take my knife and run it through a couple additional times to break those up into smaller pieces. Now, for the stock pieces like this, I actually recommend using a little more caution and making those even smaller. Those will not cook nearly as fast as the tips of the broccoli. So the smaller the pieces of those, the more evenly they'll cook, and that'll be nice. You don't want to bite into it and have just a really stiff, super firm piece with that mouthful. Okay. So that broccoli is chopped up nicely. What we're going to do now is chop up our bell pepper. So bell peppers are another great source of nutrition. We've got some vitamin A, vitamin C in them, which is good for our immune system. Also rich in fiber. You can use any color you want for this, though I like using the red because I think it pops out against the green really well. But if you want to use green, you want to use yellow or orange, that's totally fine. I can hear the tofu sizzling a little bit over here. I'm just going to take my spatula and shift things around a little bit. I can see that the bottom of that edge that was in contact with the pan is definitely starting to brown. So again, I'm going to make sure it's all in one layer, and then we'll leave it be. We'll let it continue to cook. It's okay to let it sit on the surface for a while. That actually helps it brown. If you leave it for too long, it will burn and you may get some smoke coming out of there. We're not looking for that, but be patient with it. We do want to brown those edges by leaving it in contact with the pan. So for the bell pepper, my cutting method is to cut off the top and the bottom. And I'll show you what I do here. So first, I'm cutting off the top of it, just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom side. The reason for this is it gives us really easy access to that core there. And then we can use our knife to just cut those 3 to 4 points of contact that are left. So 3 simple cuts like that. And then just like that, we're able to pull out that whole middle. If you cut straight into the pepper and don't do that, you'll have seeds and stuff kind of in your pepper, and not everyone's crazy about that. So I like to do it that way. From here, you can just make a single cut like that, and it'll give us a nice strip to work with. And now we can flatten this down on the cutting board and just dice it like we would any other vegetables. So that's the method I like to use. It just simplifies cutting through the pepper because it's kind of an irregular shape. So with the sizes for these pieces, same idea we were doing with the broccoli and the tofu, just making them about bite size. If you can, making them similar in size to the broccoli is good because they're going to cook at the same time and we want them to cook evenly. For those extra pieces that we cut off at the bottom of the top, just take your knife and run back through it, chopping those into pieces that are about the same size as the rest of your dice. All right, we'll move the extra stuff over there to the side. Okay, so those vegetables are now nice and chopped. Checking our tofu again, still looking good. So our final vegetable are snow peas. Now, I really like snow peas. They have a fun crunch to them. They're satisfying to bite into. I will say that they are a little on the pricey side. At Kroger, it was about $3 for a bag of snow peas. So depending on where you get them from, they can be a little pricey. If you go to a farmer's market or something like that, you may get a better deal. If you don't want to use snow peas, maybe you don't like them or you have trouble finding them, you can substitute it for potentially another bell pepper. You could do additional broccoli. You could pull in something like cauliflower or carrots into the mix. Stir fries are one of my favorite things to cook because you can essentially just throw whatever vegetables you like with some protein in a skillet, and you're pretty much good to go. But today we're going to make use of snow peas. Now these ones have been pre-trimmed and washed. When I say trimmed, there are some stems on the end of snow peas that are a little tough, a little difficult to bite through. You can eat them, but not everyone's crazy about them. Sometimes they'll get the fibers stuck in their teeth. So if you buy them from like a farmer's market or a place like that, and they're not pre-washed, they're not pre-trimmed, you may want to do that just to make the experience a little more pleasant. I'm going to turn the tofu over one more time over here. Oh yeah, now it's looking good. So I'll show you a piece once it's completely done, but we're going from that white color that it was when we took it out of the package to a light golden brown, almost like what a chicken nugget looks like, kind of. That's how I like to think of it. So looking for that browning, and then we'll know that it is all set. So with the snow peas, you can actually throw them in like this, and they will cook okay, but I recommend cutting them at least in half into smaller pieces. Again, we're going for bite-sized pieces of most things. So I'm running out of room on my cutting board here, but I'm going to move the broccoli and bell pepper over and bring the snow peas into the mix. If you are particular, you can really carefully cut into each one of these and make sure they're precisely in half. I'm just going to run my knife through it like so and get some smaller pieces to work with so that we don't have whole pods on our fork whenever we bite into it. Okay, and that'll just about do it. So again, cut them into smaller pieces. We can compare next to the bell pepper and see that we are lining up pretty well with our size. And that's kind of the goal for all the vegetables is can we make them pretty close to the same size? It'll make for a better experience. So this tofu over here is looking just about done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out of here. I'll keep the heat on low because we're going to turn right around and use this to cook the vegetables. But for now, we're going to set the tofu to the side in an additional bowl. Just to show you what it looks like, a little hot still, obviously, since I just pulled it off of there. But it's got a little bit more of a brown to it. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. If not, again, I like to describe it as kind of looking like a chicken nugget. Nice light brown to it, just like you're toasting it. What we're going to do now is I'm going to add another tablespoon of oil to the skillet because the tofu used up most of that. All right. And that oil is heating up. I'm going to move it around a little bit, make sure the pan is still nice and coated. And we are going to add in the bell pepper and the broccoli. We're actually going to wait on the snow peas for now. And the reason for that is the snow peas are a little more delicate, so we'll add them at the end. They do not need as much cook time. But the broccoli and the bell pepper can go right in together. So I've thrown those in. I'm just going to mix them around a little bit. Pick up some of that oil. Okay. And we're going to let that cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. It'll give the broccoli some time to soften because broccoli does take a little longer to cook. I say 2 to 3 minutes, but depending on how hot your stovetop is, it may be slower or faster. Watch the broccoli and look for it to become that dark, really saturated green color that broccoli gets whenever you cook it. Once it reaches that color, that's when you know it's cooked enough. If it's still looking kind of light green, like it might look like fresh broccoli, we want to give it a little longer. So we've got our snow peas here, but let's work on our sauce. We're doing a kind of sweet and sour orange sauce today. So I've got 3/4 cup of orange juice here, and that's going to be the base for our citrus sauce. The other ingredients we're going to use are going to be cornstarch, some low sodium soy sauce, a small amount of honey, and then some dried ginger. So let's actually start with the cornstarch. We're going to use just a tablespoon of it. This is going to help kind of thicken it a little bit. Okay. So a tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to follow that up with 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. The reason I'm using the lower sodium soy sauce is pretty high in sodium. And to keep this meal heart healthy, we want to use the lower sodium variety. Helps keep our blood pressure at a good level and just meet some of those recommendations that we have. So that's why I usually like to use low sodium soy sauce. It still has plenty of flavor in it. There's still plenty of sodium, in fact. So that's why we're using 2 tablespoons for the whole dish. So now we're going to add honey. The amount of honey you want to add is up to you. I recommend limiting it to a tablespoon. Beyond a tablespoon, we're going to kind of get into the range of the sauce truthfully being a little too sweet because we have the orange juice as a base. But yeah, I'd recommend using about anywhere from 1 teaspoon up to a tablespoon. I'm going to do about half a tablespoon here. All right. And then the last ingredient we'll add is going to be a little bit of ground ginger. You're welcome to use fresh if you prefer. I'm just working with this today. Just a dash or so. I'm just going to sprinkle it a little bit like that. And that will be plenty. Now, if you have a whisk, that would be great for mixing this. If you don't have a whisk, a spoon will do the trick as well. And we're just going to whisk the sauce together until it's incorporated, making sure that the soy sauce, orange juice, cornstarch, and honey all blend together. And if you've ever had like an orange chicken or something like that at a restaurant that serves Asian cuisine, this is going to be kind of similar to that in terms of flavor. A little bit of sweet, a little bit of salty. Okay. Let's come over here and check on our broccoli and bell peppers. It's looking pretty good. Definitely getting closer to that dark green color I was talking about. Okay. So we can go ahead and throw the snow peas in. So toss the snow peas in, mix those around as well, and we're going to give those about 60 additional seconds to cook because they don't take quite as much time because they're small and fairly thin. We'll let that cook for about 60 seconds. Then we're going to add our tofu back to the wok and then dump the sauce over it and let that heat up for about another minute. What that'll do is give the sauce a chance to thicken a little bit with the heat and reduce in volume somewhat. It'll also let everything coat in the flavor and heat up together so that all those flavors will mix together in a really, really nice way. Now, whenever we're serving this, what we have right now are several of our key food groups. We've got a great source of vegetables coming from the broccoli, snow peas, and bell pepper. And we have a great source of protein coming from our tofu. Something that I'd recommend adding and serving this with to balance it out would be a source of healthy carbohydrates or a grain. We'll talk a little bit about what your options are with that here in just a minute. For now, I'm going to go ahead and add the tofu back in. And then pour our sweet and sour orange sauce on top of it. And again, mix that around a little bit so that the tofu is spread out. We definitely want the tofu and the vegetables to come into contact with that sauce. That's how they're going to pick up all the flavor and make this truly delicious. Okay. And you'll have a little bit of a pool of sauce at the bottom of this initially. As we heat it up, like I said, the sauce will reduce in volume. It's going to thicken a little bit because of that cornstarch that's in there as some of the steam leaves and the water exits the dish. And then all the different pieces of food will pick up on that flavor. So we'll give that about a minute or two. So coming back to how we balance this meal, we've got protein, we've got vegetables. Typically, stir fries are excellent when you serve them with a healthy whole grain. So a whole grain is just the healthier version of a variety of different grains. For example, if you have white rice, brown rice is going to be the healthier version. Brown rice will have a little more protein, some extra B vitamins in it, and some additional minerals too. White rice is a little more processed, and unfortunately, we lose some of that nutrition whenever they do process it. So serving this over a bed of brown rice would be excellent. If you're not a fan of brown rice, you could also do something like quinoa, another very, very healthy grain with lots of fiber and protein. A little bit of quinoa with this on top of it could work too. Of course, if you're trying to do something a little lower in carbohydrates, you could just eat this as it is. I think most people will probably be a little hungry if they don't have some form of grain with it, which is why I recommend a little bit of brown rice, a little bit of quinoa there to sort of balance out the nutrition of everything. Like I mentioned, we are going to send out the nutrition facts so you can see how this stacks up and how you might fit it into your day-to-day. But this is a great meal prep meal. This is designed to make about 4 servings. So if you are making it just for yourself, you can get through about 4 days of lunches or dinners with this. Or if you're making it for your family, like I said, 4 servings. So it's great to cook this and hopefully have enough for your whole family, depending on the size of it. It does scale very well, though. You can always add in more vegetables, more tofu. If you don't have a wok and you're just using a skillet, though, you may want to cook it in batches because at a certain point, believe me, I've been there, you can get too many vegetables and you'll sort of run out of room in whatever you're cooking in. So I can see the sauce bubbling a little bit. Again, you'll see steam rising out of it, allowing the sauce to thicken. I am going to mix it around just a little bit more now. And the color of the vegetables looks so good at this point. As you cook things, the saturation goes up. You really see the bright, vibrant greens and reds, which makes this look extra appetizing. If you're not a big fan of tofu, everything about this recipe would work with an animal-based protein as well. If you wanted to use pieces of chicken, you wanted to do like a lean beef, that would work as well. So quite a few options there for how you would serve this up. I do like using the tofu, like I said, though, because it's very affordable and pretty easy to work with. So I'm going to turn off the heat at this point, and let's get something to serve this in. Oh, yeah. And it's piping hot, too. You might be able to see the steam coming off of there. So I think the reds of the bell peppers and the greens of the broccolis look really, really nice there. That tofu is at a nice golden brown. The sauce, like I said, is a little bit of sweet, a little bit of salty, because we've got the soy sauce giving us that nice umami flavor. And then we've got the orange juice giving us a little bit of the sweetness with that touch of honey that we added too. So it's really pleasant. I feel like it scratches all the right culinary itches whenever you bite into it. It does reheat very well. You can keep this in your fridge for up to 4 days. If you're taking it to the office or to work with you, popping it in the microwave for about 30 seconds to a minute will get it nice and hot again. I do recommend eating it hot. It definitely tastes a lot better when it's like that. Though I've never shied away from cold leftovers either. Those can be very enjoyable. So I'm going to take a look at the chat. I see we got a couple comments here. I want to address those before we wrap up for the day. Okay, so this is a question about the snow peas. What is the best way to get the strings off of snow pea pods? Mine are always stringy and tough to eat. Yes, so like I mentioned, the stringy parts, the stems, they are technically edible, but it's not for everybody. It's a little tough, and the strings can get caught up in your teeth, and you'll feel like you need to bring a stick of dental floss with you just to eat something like this. I wish I hadn't cut all the snow peas I had, but when you have the snow pea, what you can do, the really, really tough side, the like hard, almost like a twig side, you can cut that part of the stem off, just that tip. And that will get rid of part of the really rough part. On the other side, if you don't like that stringy bit, there's a little bit of almost like a curly end. You can actually grab that string and just pull, and it will open up the pea pod. It'll just pull that string right out. Some people don't like doing the work with each snow pea, having to like cut that off and then pull the string off. It's really not too bad. It just takes a couple extra minutes of prep, but that will remove the stringy bit as well as the tough stem on them if you want to avoid eating that. Like I said, you technically can eat it if you're not too bothered by the stringy pieces potentially getting stuck in your teeth. That's kind of up to you. But yeah, you can trim it and do a little bit of extra prep work to get rid of that stringy part. Okay. A couple more questions here about substitutions. So again, like I mentioned, animal protein, you could definitely swap out and have some chicken in this, doing some lean beef if you wanted to. I think those would be good substitutions for the tofu. For the vegetables, any of the different bell peppers you can swap out for the other colors. You could use jalapeno pepper if you wanted to make it a little spicier. Broccoli, cauliflower, carrots. If you go to the grocery store, they frequently will actually have stir-fry bags of vegetables that are kind of pre-prepared mixes with the intent of being used in a stir fry. So if you're looking to save some time and you don't mind spending a little bit of extra money, buying one of those stir fry kits of vegetables, you could just throw that into the wok and then you would skip all the prep step. You could still make your own sauce if you wanted, and that would help speed things up. Stir fries are definitely a great way to get in some healthy nutrition without having to take too much time to cook it, which is why they're one of my go-tos for food. Okay. And I don't see any other questions at this moment. Let me make sure. Okay. So thank you everyone again so much for attending. We're going to send out, as I mentioned, a link to the recipe, the nutrition information, and a copy of the recording. You'll also get a short survey. If you could fill that out, that would be great. It gives us feedback on what you liked about today's event, what you maybe weren't so crazy about and could see some room for improvement on, or just any other comments you had. We're always trying to improve our process, and we'd love to hear feedback from you. We also have all sorts of wellness events going on. Like I mentioned, we upload a lot of them to our YouTube channel if you are interested in that. We have a guided meditation session that's going to be tomorrow at 12 o'clock, so you can definitely check that out as well. If you are not already on our mailing list, you can email us at edws@gsu.edu, and we'll get you on there so that you can see all the cooking demonstrations, our Fun Fitness Friday workouts, our stretch breaks, and all the other sorts of activities that we offer. With that being said, thank you again for attending today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.